This is Creepy and Geeky, a part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, we will be talking about Looper and Come True with Cat Hughes. But first, it's time for Donna and I to talk about what we've been up to in the last week. Welcome back, Donna.
Hey, Robert. Thank you so much for having me back yet again.
Yeah, always good to have you on. All right. So, what have you been up to this last week? Hit me with your first thing.
I actually haven't been up to a doggone thing. Work has been crazy. So I'm still kind of muddling through with my anthology April. I'm watching one horror anthology every day for the month of April, and that's been going pretty well. I just revisited watching the VHS franchise,
Oh
and
yeah, I saw you posting about that.
I'm not a big found footage horror person, but for whatever reason, I really enjoyed rewatching these. These were really good. They're not all of them, but most
Right.
of them.
Yeah, I found at least one segment in each movie that I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
That's generally where, because again, not a big anthology fan, and like I like found footage, but it's really hit or miss for me. So
Yeah, I typically don't even go for it, but it's been nice watching so many of these anthology films because there were some that I had never seen, and actually wrapping it up today will be probably the last one that I'm posting later today. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I haven't been to the movie theater, so I always have to live vicariously through you and see what you've seen. But I do have a couple of things to talk about, so at least I brought something to the table this week.
yeah, all right. Yeah, I only got to see. I was originally slated to see three movies this week, but I only was able to get to two. I got to watch The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and I got to watch the IMAX release of Hereditary.
Yeah, that's the
So
one I'm waiting to hear about because I want to know how Katrina felt watching that movie and how nice
yeah,
that was in IMAX.
yeah. So let me go ahead and talk about The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare first, which is a Guy Ritchie uh, historical action picture with Henry Cavill, Alan Ritchson, and lots of other fun people. Um, but yeah, that one was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I was telling Katrina after we watched it, I was like, "That's how you do a really good historical movie." Is I know that they had to fudge some of the history a
Oh,
little bit to punch up the action and everything, but I'm okay with that because then I can look into the history myself and get all the dry other the dry real
oh, the
story,
stats.
you
Yeah.
know but like right what it is, it at least gives you like a fun little bit, and then at the end they kind of tell you, well, after the events of this, of what we just showed you in the movie, here's what these the real people did
Right.
later. So that was kind of cool.
It looks like a lot of fun. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
obviously Henry Cavill is dream to watch, but I'm
Right.
really liking Alan Richardson. I'm glad that he
Yeah.
kind of is getting, a little bit more recognition and people are actually putting him in movies now because he seems
Yeah.
like he would be a really big star.
So, he's been kind of on the fringes for a long time. I actually read a really good article with him about his like life and career and everything like that. And he
Hmm.
had some really bad downs in his career and life there for a little bit. He actually uh, tried to commit suicide at one point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it just got really bad. But or was contemplating suicide. I don't know if
Right,
he
right.
tried to commit it, but he but he's bounced back, and now he's really like that Reacher show that he's
Hmm.
on is a huge hit.
Right.
And so and he's starting to come up. He was in the last Fast and Furious movie, playing one of the I'm playing one of the characters. I'm not going to
Hmm.
spoil it for people who might not have seen it, um but yeah, it's I'm really digging him. He's really a good actor, and it's nice to see him kind of coming up in the world. Um,
It seemed like they had really good chemistry too, him and
oh
Henry
yeah,
Cavill.
oh
Hopefully
yeah.
they'll maybe do some more stuff together because everything I've seen, the trailers, it just looks like a hoot and it looks like a lot of fun.
Oh, it was a ton of fun. It's very much just a fun people messing up the Nazis movie. So it's definitely a lot of fun. And it's got a great cast, like I said. It's but yeah, it's just you get Carrie Elwes in a small role in it. Alex Pettyfer. Anybody remembers him? He was kind of a young actor, like
Oh,
a
I remember him.
decade or two previously, and now he's an older actor now. So it was interesting to see him now in the movie. So yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not very complex or anything, but it's just a good action flick. If you like what they do, if you like Guy Ritchie, you like Henry Cavill, you'll enjoy it. So.
Yeah,
So,
definitely right up
um,
my alley. I'll have to check that out.
yeah. And then Wednesday we got to go to the one showing of of the IMAX presentation of Hereditary. I never got to see it in the theater.
Hmm.
It was kind of just before I started watching horror regularly. Um, so I've actually missed both Hereditary and Midsummer on the big screen. So I'm hoping A24 will put out a Midsummer on IMAX thing because that would be the one to go to.
Yeah, I definitely would go to that. I saw Midsummer in
Yeah,
theaters when it came out, so I
yeah,
was very impressed. So if it comes to IMAX, I'm definitely going to that.
yeah. Heck yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. This was Katrina's first time ever seeing Hereditary. And she was so funny too, because like recently I mentioned about going to it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that'd be good because I haven't seen it." I was like, "What?" And she's like, "You do this every time I mention I haven't seen Hereditary yet." I'm like, "I know, because it baffles me that you haven't seen it." Um, so yeah, so it was very fun. It was interesting because like when you watch it at home, like you get the sound, but
Hmm.
having it around you in IMAX sound and everything like that it's a different level. The sounds, like Katrina even mentioned it at one point, there's like this kind of droning sound going on. She's like, that sound is making my heart beat faster. I'm like, it's meant to. You're meant to be on edge.
Exactly. It's supposed to
Um,
have you very unnerved and like, oh
yeah,
my God, what's going to happen?
yeah. The sound design was a huge part of it. So it was definitely really fun to watch. It remains one of my top horror movies of all time. It's what Ari Aster did with both Midsummer and Hereditary is just next level for me in terms of horror and just movie making in general.
Yeah, I agree with
Um,
you because it's stuff that kind of just stays there. After you watch it, you're
yeah.
still kind of like, oh my gosh. And then you replay all of the stuff. And then I imagine for you seeing all of the things, like in the more dark scenes where you can actually
Hmm.
that probably was so creepy.
Yeah.
Just seeing those
Oh,
figures and bodies and
it was great. It was great because Katrina, because she hadn't seen it, it was great to get her reactions during the whole process. Because then she was just like, so there's the part where, like early in the movie, she was just like, she remarked about, she's like, there's too many dark corners in this movie, in this house, and I was like, I just kind of like smirked to
right,
myself,
because you knew it was
and
coming
yeah, I knew it was coming. And then later on, in the bedroom when he wakes up and she's over there in the fucking
in the
top corner
corner.
of the wall
Yeah.
and everything. Katrina's like, nope, 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 nope. She's like,
That's the best when you get to watch a movie like that with
yeah,
somebody who's never seen it because it's like watching it for the first time and like
yeah,
you know what's coming, but they have no freaking clue.
yeah. I was trying not to like look over at her all the time and just be like, did you see it? Did you see
Yeah,
it?
you don't
Did
want
you
to give
see
her
it?
cues about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trying to watch her reactions and stuff like that. So I was just mostly like, trying to watch her out of my peripheral the whole time. But while also trying to enjoy the movie myself.
Right,
But
yeah.
and it had been a little bit since I'd last seen it, so it was really fun to rewatch and
Well, I'm glad that it
just
was
enjoy
awesome.
it.
I mean, I knew it would
Yeah.
be.
Oh yeah, no, it was great for myself and just also I asked Katrina afterward. I was like, so what did you think? She's like, I don't even know. I'm still processing. So
And that's when you know it's a good movie, when you're still having to
exactly.
process it. That's how I felt the first time I watched Rosemary's Baby. I was just like, wait a minute, what? What now? Let me
Yeah.
go back and understand this. What?
Right. So yeah, no, it was a good time. We were supposed to watch Boy Kills World on Thursday, but we had something come up and we couldn't go. So we're now going to see that on Tuesday. This week's movies for us are going to be Boy Kills World on Tuesday, um, which will already have happened by the time you hear this episode.
Right.
Wednesday will be the 45th anniversary re-release of Alien.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and Thursday will be a most anticipated movie for myself, The Fall Guy. So
That's gonna be fun. That looks like
I,
so much fun.
yeah, I'm a big fan of David Leitch's movies. So everything he's done so far has been fantastic. So I'm hyped for that.
Plus,
So
we know the stunts are gonna be over the chain,
oh
over the
yeah,
top because
you
he's
know,
a stunt guy. So it's gonna be
and
really cool.
I've been riding on the Ryan Gosling train lately. Been watching kind of like overly watching stuff of his lately, Nice Guys and Drive and stuff like that. So I'm hyped to see him in this, and you know we got our guy Winston Duke in this too. So he
Oh
looks
my
like he's just
gosh.
in a small role, but it looks like
I
he'll
don't
be in
care.
there. Yeah,
I don't care. I
I
just
know.
want to see him on screen. That's
Yeah,
all. Um,
but yeah. So
so
yeah, let us in on what you've been up to.
I didn't bring too much. I mean, I brought a little bit. So uh I will let you say his name because I feel like I'm gonna butcher it. David Dasmalchian.
Das Malchen. Yeah,
Dalsmalchin. See, I was gonna
yeah.
butcher it. So, so he, I just saw that he is hosting a new talk show.
Yes.
I'm really interested in. I haven't seen any episodes yet, but the
I haven't
Grave
either.
Conversations.
Yeah. Him and the
It's
guest are in
so cute
coffins.
in coffins because you know he has the coffin sponsorship, like he's a
Yes.
spokesperson.
Yes.
So
I forgot about that.
that is such a neat idea. I don't
Yeah.
know why
And his first
no
guest, I
other.
think, is Kate Siegel, isn't it?
Kate Siegel, yep,
Yes.
Flanagan's gonna be on
Flanagan's going to
it.
be on there. Yeah.
Matthew Lillard. I can't remember the
Oh,
rest of the
man.
guests that I saw, but this is such a great concept to have
Yeah.
people. Because I
I'll
mean,
definitely be checking that one out.
when are you ever gonna? I mean, when you are in a coffin, you're not gonna know that you're.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry to say that. I don't mean to be morbid,
Yeah.
but it's true. But that is kind of it suits him, you know, his
Oh, yeah,
whole
for sure.
horror mythos, his attitude. It's. I love that idea, and I find it odd that no horror podcast talk show host, nobody has thought of that before. That's such a great concept. So
Yeah.
uh, allegedly, they're only like very short interviews, like six to
Uh,
eight, 6 to 10 minutes, those types of things.
well,
But
that's disappointing then.
no, that's allegedly. It might be
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it is
Hopefully.
longer.
Yeah.
But I just think that's just such a cute idea, and it just astonishes me that no one's ever thought of that before. Um, and then the other thing that I'm pretty sure you've already heard about it. We're getting two new Evil Dead films allegedly in the
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so I'm a
Yeah,
little excited
there
about
was one
that.
we knew about
Mhm.
recently, and then the other one got somewhat announced the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a little excited. One of them is being done by a director who did Infested, that's
Yeah,
streaming
I'm
on
not watching
Shutter.
that movie. Yep, not watching that
I
movie.
want to watch it, but I can't because my husband is an arachnophobic
Yeah,
person,
I'm
so
an
he can't.
arachnophobe too, so
So he
no,
can't. He
ain't no
can't, and
fucking
so
way.
I have to watch it without him. But because they said even if you don't have arachnophobia, it probably will make you have
Oh, see.
arachnophobia.
Oh, yeah, no, no way. Yeah. So that's the problem is like, dude, I'm gonna watch your Evil Dead movie, but I am not watching your Spider movie. Now the other guy who they just announced he's got an upcoming movie. I can't think of what it's called, but I remember it being this weird little crime comedy. Um
Last stop in Yuma County.
yes, yes, thank you. I've seen the trailer for that and that looks fantastic. It looks like it's got a great cast and looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Looks
that one
like
looks
it's
really
kind of
good.
in a Cohen brothers kind of style. Um so which is cool because I like Coen Brothers kind of crime
Hmm.
weird shit.
Yeah.
So
So I figured when it said Evil Dead, I was like, oh yeah, Robert's all over that. He already
oh
knows
heck
that
yeah,
one.
of course. I'm
But
all up on the Evil Dead knows. Yeah,
while we're on the Evil Dead train,
yeah,
apparently there also is a Netflix Sam Raimi produced Netflix movie that's coming out, and it's called Don't Move. So
Don't
he
I
didn't
hadn't
direct
heard of
it, he
that.
just produced it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's starring Finn Wittrock. I think he was from American Horror Story, which I
Okay.
actually liked him. I don't know. He was in the American Horror Story Freak Show, and
Hmm.
he just plays a very good, handsome psycho. Like
Okay.
basically, his character was like a 1940s like Patrick Bateman. That's basically what it was like. But in this one, he's a serial killer. He injects his victim with a paralyzing agent, and
Yeah, I just
she
saw that.
has to run away from him in a forest and find a place to hide before that paralyzing agent kicks in and she can't move. So
Hmm.
I'm super excited, especially if they're in the woods. I can only imagine if she's going to be setting up traps or if she's some kind of survivalist. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see that. Um, but the thought of that, you're having to figure out what to do and calculate all of the stuff before your body completely shuts down and you're immobile. Ugh, that's terrifying.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Um,
Um,
yeah, I'm
mhm,
interested in that now.
yeah.
I'll have to check that out. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, do you have anything? I wasn't gonna think that was
um,
it for me. I think I might have had one more thing, but that was it.
oh, okay. Um, yeah, I think that's all I have for this week. That, like I said, I didn't have a lot going on. I was having to watch other stuff for uh, podcast stuff.
Hmm.
So I didn't get a lot. Speaking of David Dastmalchian, I caught up on a show that I watched called The Rookie, which is an ABC cop drama, um,
Hmm.
where in a fantasy world cops are actually okay. Um, no, and they really do
Not the
play
one
it.
Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
David Dastmalchian plays a character in an episode or two, I think. One or two episodes. He plays a criminal guy in it, and he comes off pretty pretty good in that. He's very evil, which is kind of cool to watch him play like that. So it's just another instance of Fillion bringing in people from things he's worked on because he was in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad
Oh yeah, that's
with
right.
him. So yeah, so but yeah, so if you want to get some more Dust Mulchin fix, go check out a couple episodes of that show. It's a good show. I like it. It's like I said, it's a fantasy world where cops are actually do the right thing and you know
You cracked
yeah.
me up when you said that. I couldn't help but bust out laughing. Oh my gosh,
No, but
Robert,
I
that's
mean,
terrible.
yeah. So I mean, I know what it is, and so I just but it's well written, well acted, and
It seems like a very
it's fun.
entertaining show. I mean, I
Yeah,
like
it
Fillion
is.
anyway.
Um, so, but yeah, check that. I got caught up on that because I'd been a couple episodes behind on that show, and so I was pleasantly surprised to see him being a guest star in there. So, but yeah, no. Other than that, I don't have anything else. I've been trying to catch up on other things, but just life gets in the way as usual. So,
Oh my gosh, I know. So I only have one more thing. I'll go ahead
yeah,
and wrap it up with this.
yeah.
So I don't know if you've heard about this one, but you probably have. So Al Pacino and our boy Dan Stevens. Dan
Mm,
Stevens is really getting a lot of work, and I'm loving every moment of
yeah,
this. So they're going to be in a an exorcism type religious
oh,
horror film called The Ritual, and this is another one of those cases where it's supposed to be a true story. It's based on a true story. Yeah.
right,
Okay. Right.
yeah.
Um, but Dan Stevens' priest is questioning his faith. Al Pacino's priest has a troubled past, and it is allegedly based on a woman by the name of Emma Schmidt, who supposedly has like the most thoroughly documented exorcism in American history. I got
Mm,
to read up more about this woman because I want to see what all the ins and outs are. But I love Al Pacino, but I'm absolutely loving the fact that Dan Stevens is everywhere. Like 2024 is definitely his year, but I think this might not be coming out until 2025, maybe.
mm.
But at least, it's good to know that people are recognizing how awesome Dan Stevens is.
Yeah, heck yeah. No, I'm up for more Dan Stevens. Like because that was the thing too. Because I was like, okay, so he's had a couple of really good movies out so far this year, with one more coming up. Um, and then you know loving him, going back and rewatching The Guest again recently. Um, and I was like, well, what else has he been in that I would want to watch? And he's done a bunch of stuff, but it's all stuff that like is either he's like not the main character, so he's just like a side character, which is fine. But I'm just like, okay, well, I want to see more of like, at least if he is a side character like he is in Abigail and Godzilla X Kong, that
Right.
he's still got a prominent enough role. But most of what he's been in has just been kind of like, not stuff I'm super interested in watching. There's a couple of things I definitely want to check out. There's a Liam Neeson movie called The Walk Among the Tombstones that I want to check out that he was
That's a
in it
really good
also.
one. Actually,
Yeah.
I forgot that he was in that. Now that you said, I
Yeah.
completely forgot. But that is a good movie, though.
Yeah. And then there's another one where he's in it, but the perspective shifts to first person. It's like this weird science fiction, um, like alternate reality kind of thing. I don't know. It's really weird, but it shifts to first person. I'm like, well, then we're not getting to see Dan Stevens. So I mean, I was like, so I'm like, that's just weird. But yeah, no, there's not a whole lot for me to go back and watch that I really like am hyped to go back and watch. So, but there's a couple of good things that I'm
Yeah,
I'm
he was the
I'm
only
gonna go
reason
check.
that I actually stayed watching Downton Abbey because I really didn't have a stake in that show. I mean, I
Yeah,
love watching the whole upstairs downstairs thing, the
yeah.
whole class thing. I do love that, and I really love white people going through shit, uh, like rich white people going through some shit. It's
Yeah,
like candy for me. I'm telling you.
right.
But in that aspect, his character was such a great character because he was a doctor and he knew how to work for a living. He was wealthy, but he wasn't like a snob, and so
Yeah,
he was like one of my favorite things about that show. That's
that's
probably
funny.
the only reason that I even still considered watching any of it. The
Yeah,
movies, all of that is Dan
yeah.
Stevens. That's the only
The
reason.
o- yeah, the only other thing I'm interested in checking out is another TV series he was on called Legion, which I
Oh,
heard was
Legion was so good. You didn't watch
yeah.
that when it was out? Oh my
No, I
gosh.
didn't. I should have because it was like I heard it was really good and Aubrey Plaza was in it, who I love. So
Aubrey Plaza kills it. And then, it's comics. So
yeah,
you're
no, I
gonna
know.
get it's so many
Yeah,
great characters that you get to see on screen. You'll love
yeah,
that. That
yeah.
hands down, you're gonna want to buy that. I can tell already.
Oh,
You're
okay.
gonna love it.
All right. Yeah. Definitely want to check that out. I just haven't yet, and I will be probably checking it out pretty soon.
I feel
So
like you and I could do a podcast just on Legion because there's so much to unpack. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on in that show. My gosh. When you let me know.
yeah, yeah. No, we may need to start another podcast right there. Just us talking about TV shows.
Yeah, man.
So
I got to unpack a lot of shit with these shows because
yeah, right.
it's a lot, but it's so much going on, especially with Legion. My God. You,
Yeah.
yeah, please watch that. I need to
Okay.
talk to you, and I don't want to say anything without spoiling
Okay.
anything.
All right. I'll definitely get on that then.
Please.
All right. All right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online real quick?
Well, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. My Dawn of the Dead podcast is there, but I'm also on Instagram way more than any place else. I am
Yeah,
on Twitter barely,
barely.
and but you can always hit me up on Instagram because I'm usually that's like my home base to post
Yes.
a lot of crap. So that's where I am.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you again. And well, be seeing you next week.
Absolutely, thank
All
you.
right. Stay creepy. And on today's What's Your Favorite Double Feature episode, we are talking about Looper and Come True. Joining me for this episode is Kat Hughes. Kat is a freelance film critic who writes for THN, Ghouls Magazine, Film Stories, and Film Hounds. And she's the host of the podcast Movies with Mummy, where she talks kids' movies with her daughter Aurora. Welcome back to the show, Kat.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always good having you on. You've been on quite a few times now, so it's always nice to have you back. Um,
Yes, and it's always nice to get on a pod and to not have it be co-run by a chaotic 5-year-old. So it's nice to just be able to come on a podcast and sort of chill a little bit.
right, yeah, exactly. I try to be a little less manic than a 5-year old, so not always successful, but But yeah, no, so we, as listeners know, the whole idea behind the what's your favorite double feature is guests come to me, like I go to a guest, say, hey, do you have some double features you'd want to talk about? And then the guest gives me three to five different double features, and then I choose one based on that. Or sometimes if one doesn't quite work, but it's close, and might have another idea for one of the movies or something, then we kind of hash it out and figure it out. But that being said, um, Kat brought me this double feature, which was very interesting. One, because I really enjoy the movie Looper by Ryan Johnson, but also two because I had recently watched Come True for the first time back in January, just a couple months ago, and fell in love with it immediately. And so I wanted to talk to somebody about it really, really badly. And I was hoping to talk to somebody on the podcast about it. But so when you put it up there as one of the movies for this, it didn't matter what it was paired with, I was in. So but you brought me a really interesting combination, and I'm kind of curious as to why these two movies put together is something that worked for you.
So for me, these films both feel very heavily influenced by James Cameron's Terminator films.
Mm.
I'm a big fan of Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. And there was just elements that I think because I'm such a big fan of those films that I really picked up that maybe passed some others by. And I sort of viewed Looper as a new Terminator film. And then similarly with Come True, I got very heavy Terminator vibes, both in different ways from both films. But yeah, I kind of think that they're both modern sci-fi films that feel within like Cameron's sort of vibe. If I was to go to a triple bill, I'd also add Gareth Edwards, the creator. I think that's also kind
Oh,
of
interesting.
very much a new take on Cameron. That's
I,
the creator is Terminator 3 that should have been. Like that's kind of the direction that it should have sort of gone in. So yeah, I can expand it out into a triple, but it's basically just me all these years later since Cameron's left the franchise behind, desperately trying to claw on to these ideas in any way I can.
right. No, I haven't seen the creator, so that actually makes me more interested in seeing it now because I too am a big Terminator fan. I love the franchise as a whole, even some of the later installments. Um, but I and I can see Looper um definitely having those Terminator vibes, like 100%. There's lots going on there. But Come True, like I'm trying to think now because I just rewatched it last time. I'm trying to think of what Terminator vibes there are. It's interesting. So we'll get into that though. But let's go ahead and talk Looper first. Um, Looper, obviously, like I said, was written and directed by Ryan Johnson, who's known primarily for playing around in the crime and kind of neo noir genres. He's probably most well known now for his Knives Out movies and for directing Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Um, but Looper was his first big sci-fi, um, kind of a melding between kind of a sci-fi and neo noir a little bit, um, and definitely has some heavy uh, Terminator vibes because you got these guys who are called loopers who are working for a criminal organization who went so at the time, which is 2044, which is the present time, and time travel hasn't been created yet, but in the future, it has 30 years in the future. They send people back, like, whoever they want to send back, who needs to be gotten rid of. They send them back because then there's no evidence. Person vanishes in the current time and dies 30 years ago. So it's an interesting setup. And then the main looper that we follow, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, Joe, uh, is kind of telling the story, and occasionally the looper has themselves sent back from the future when they have to close the loop. So It's an interesting concept. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis play the same character. Obviously separated by 30 years, and they actually made up Joseph Gordon-Levitt's face to look closer to Bruce Willis's. I don't think they're very successful in that, and I really just I think they should have just gone ahead and just let him be who he was and not worry about doing the makeup. But that's just me. So
Yeah, I mean the jaws kind of there in some shots,
yeah,
but yeah, not necessarily in all of them. I think they do enough through their performance to link them without, as you say, without the need for the prosthetics.
exactly. Yeah, that's more than anything else is just getting the mannerisms and that kind of stuff down. I think was the more important. I think most movies try to do that where you're not trying to overly make up the person to try to make them look like an older version of themselves. But it doesn't. It's slightly detracting here and there, but it's not too bad. And this also co-stars Emily Blunt in a really good role. So it's it's this one's. I haven't watched this one in a while. Um, so it was really fun going back to it and just getting to see all the um all the fun stuff that was in it. Getting to see Noah Segan, or Sagan, um, getting a much larger role than I'm used to seeing him in most things, and especially in a Ryan Johnson film because he's like a friend of Ryan Johnson's. And he's like in everything, and so it's nice to see him in a much bigger role in this one.
Yeah, the role was written for him.
Yeah,
It's why the character's called Kid Blue because that is a Western that Noah Sagan is obsessed with. It is his social media handle is at Kid Blue.
right. Yeah,
And so when Brian was writing the script, he knew that Joe and Noah were both going to be in it because they're both in all of his things. But he specifically wrote Kid Blue for Noah because I think up until that point, Noah had been doing lots of horror. He did Dead Girl, Cabin Fever 2. He was playing a lot of like really unpleasant characters. And that's not to say that Kid Blue's the nicest. He's kind of like a hired goon.
right.
But with this script, like Johnson lent into Noah's sort of natural comedic talents, which he's then perpetuated in the Knives Out films.
Yes.
Um, I know that there's one scene where Kid Blue's like twirling around the gun, and he's supposed to be like, "Look at me, I'm like this great like armsman." You've got this like silly blunderbuss, which you don't need any precision, and he fumbles the gun work.
Hmm.
That was an accident during one of the takes. He did it like 100% perfect every other take, and Ryan was like, "I'm going to use that take because it works for the character." But because I've interviewed Noah before, and he was like, "Dude, like." I know how to do this. He was like his Top Gun, Iceman coin roll thing. He spent like weeks, months practicing this, and then what makes the cut? The fumble. So yeah, it's nice to see Noah sort of given this big platform
Yeah.
by his friend. I think it's always nice when filmmakers are trying to help their friends raise their profile.
Yeah. No, I like that. I love that a lot when and I know it's so funny when some directors get hell for it and others don't, because they use a lot of the same actors over and over and over again. But I like that. I like when a director can, especially if they're a writer director, can use an actor multiple times and give them the material that works best for them, giving them different characters each time, so that they can, um, just kind of have fun with it. And you get to see them, the comfortability of it all. Um, I'm trying to think of somebody who's like that. I just had it right on the top of my brain. But lots of people do it. Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, people I've covered on the show. And so they use a lot of the similar actors because it's people they're comfortable with and have a lot of fun working with, and they have a tendency to bring the best out of them as well. And that's what I love that, and seeing Noah Segan and some of the and just Gordon Levitt and a lot of Ryan Johnson's movies as well. So he's obviously creating this nice little stable of um actors to kind of move about his productions. But
He
yeah,
also,
yeah,
I was
go
gonna say,
ahead.
a lot of the time he uses his family as well for other roles. So Nathan Johnson did the score for this,
Mm,
also did the score for Brick, has been used a lot. His other cousin Zachary Johnson did all the artwork and tends to do a lot of the artwork for his project. So I think Ryan Johnson is definitely somebody who began very low budget, very indie,
right.
and has clung on to those people that helped get him where he is, which I think is, as much as we, you just mentioned like Quentin Tarantino, that there aren't many of them that do cling on
Right.
to the people that helped get them there. A lot of the time those people fall by the wayside or the studio pushback or whatever. But because I
Yeah.
mean, you look at the cast of Knives Out and Knives Out 2, you've got Daniel Craig, Kate Hudson, and Jamie Lee Curtis. Just going and going, and my friend Noah's going to be in it. I
Yeah.
can see the studios being a bit like, who? So the fact that he did sort of fight to keep his friend in minor roles in both of them, but the fact that he did fight, I think I really respect Johnson for doing that.
They might be minor, but they're very memorable roles, though. So that's what I
Oh yeah,
love about it too. Is Noah brings such a great character to each one of them, and like you said, playing into his comedic talents in each one of these, that it just continues to elevate it. And yeah, he might be a small minor character, but you remember that character a lot. So and he's obviously giving him those characters to play with and just have a little bit of fun with. So I like that. I like that a lot. So um
I really want in a future Knives Out film, I really want it to be that Noah's character is like the evil protagonist thing, and that
right.
it's been him all along, and that like Benoit hasn't noticed that there's you're such a super detective, Benoit, but I've been here all along, and it sort of like cuts back to all the other films where he's been like the stoner and
Yeah,
the trooper and stuff. I think that would be like a great
that would
reveal
be
for like Knives Out 3, 4, or however many they're going to make of them to suddenly be like, oh, it was you all along.
yeah. Okay, Ryan Johnson, if you're listening to this, and I know he's not, but if you're listening, do that because that would be hilarious. So but yeah, no, it's yeah, no, it's I love seeing Noah Sig in all of his movies. This one just getting to play around with that, and I think that adds to that character, that fumble, like you said. He as much as he's like, oh man, you had to use that one. It gives that like because if he had done it perfect every time, it wouldn't have been as interesting as it is with him fumbling it, and then making that recurring joke of him shooting himself in the foot. So it makes it a lot more fun of a character and no less dangerous or anything, even though he is kind of, a fuck up. So, but it's like, him aside, we've got Jeff Daniels in this as the um like the crime boss of our current time period, who was sent back from the future to kind of maintain the loopers in our current time, and has basically then gone beyond that and has taken over the city, and has created a police force with his what they call Gatmen, which is what Kid Blue is. He's one of the kind of their little police force of sorts. Um, and then the loopers, they carry around these old blunderbuss type. That's what they're called, blunderbusses. Weapons, and it's just a very interesting setup. I really enjoy it. They're paid in silver and in gold from the future, and they have to like exchange it in for real money and everything. It's so interesting. I love the whole concept of it. I'm a sucker for time travel. In anything, in any movie, you give me time travel, I'm in. But
Same.
yeah, yeah, and I know it definitely goes back to Terminator. It's all everything all roads lead back to Terminator for me in terms of time travel stuff. Terminator, Back to the Future, that kind of stuff. The 80s time travel movie was like, okay, I'm sold. I'm in from now on. And so yeah, no, it's that's what makes this a lot of fun is, the travel conceit. Obviously there's always paradoxes. There's always things that are always going to not make the most perfect sense, but you have to let it go because otherwise you're just going to get twisted up in it, and it doesn't matter. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what they say in the conversation, isn't it? Like, when the Joes are, face to face. No, it's when Abe is like, talking to Joe. He's like, I could tell you this, but it doesn't matter. It's not, we all kind of understand that time travel is ununderstandable. So let's
Right.
just move on. But I do like how it does follow that like Back to the Future logic of, if something happens to your past self, it impacts on the future self.
Yeah.
So you've got Paul Dano's character Seth. He is the first one who lets his loop run, and he is held hostage, and we don't see what's happening to him, but we do see his future self
Yeah.
losing limbs uh quite rapidly, and so it becomes quickly obvious that if something happens to the present you, the future you isn't going to be around for too long. And I kind of like how that's set up there, ready to come into play later on.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I like, and and again, that's what makes time travel movies really fascinating is because you can do various different versions. You can do this version where what you do in the past directly affects your future, or you can do the alternate future thing where, whatever you do doesn't really change anything in the future, it just kind of veers off and do a new future. But this very much, is similar to, like we said, Terminator rules, where what you do in the past directly affects the future. And yeah, it's I that was an interesting concept too, because you first see like he gets writing, like some kind of writing on his arm, telling him to meet them at a certain place, and he's trying to make it there, and before he can make it there, everything starts falling off. So it's just like it was a very disturbing image to see as he's trying to like trying to gun the car, and then all of a sudden his foot's not there,
Yes.
and yeah, it was crazy. um and yeah, it's just it I don't know, it's just a fun movie. It's dark. Bruce Willis is still going strong at this point. He's we all know that he's not doing well now. But at this point in time in 2012 when this movie came out, he was still doing good. Um, and he's doing great in the role. You feel all the pain he's feeling, because in the future he loses his wife and he's trying to, kill. I mean, it's very, very echoey of Terminator because he's coming back and he's trying to kill this one specific kid who might become this person called the Rainmaker in the future, who's the person who controls everything. And he needs to kill this one kid. And so he's going around and literally killing like he's going to three different places and killing each of these children who might be the Rainmaker until he finds the last one. And it's pretty disturbing. I mean, and it's eating him up. He doesn't want to do it, but he has to do it to save his wife. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say it's after he's killed the first child, and
Hmm.
he still has all the same memories in place, and that's
Yeah.
when he realizes that he's just killed an innocent child,
Yeah.
and he's sad for the fact that he hasn't managed to change the future, but he's more sad for this horrible act that he's just committed. He's kind of the film's Terminator, but
Yeah.
this is a human Terminator. This is one that does still have feelings and emotions. And yeah, that scene where he's just sort of like under the bridge, sort of just like, oh my God, what have I done? I think that's, because we don't really get to spend a huge amount of time with Bruce Willis's version of Joe,
No.
but the scenes that we do are so steeped in his love for this woman that his present self hasn't yet met.
Right. And that's the interesting thing is that he gets to the second child and finds that it's the child of the woman who we've already met in the current time is the woman that Joe is sort of seeing. He obviously wants more from her, but she's really, you know, just working. She considers it a business transaction. And Joe is, wants more from her. And but she's just like, nope. And so you see him pull up and see that the second child that he's targeting is hers. And you don't see it, but you find out later that, yeah, he had to kill him too. So it's just, having to like make that choice, like, is just, and then knowing that you killed this kid and that nothing changed and that was not the kid you needed to kill, to accomplish
Yeah.
your goal. I mean, you shouldn't have to kill any of these kids, but so um yeah, it's just it's I wouldn't say it's a rough movie, but there's definitely a couple of rough moments, where you're just like, dang, man, that's just, it's not something anybody should have to do. um
Yeah, and I think that's something that Johnson does really well. Is it's like
mhm,
with even with Brick, Brick is a very cold, slick, like teen film noir, but it's a mystery that is born out of the tragedy of the loss of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character's girlfriend. In
right,
in that it's very, there's lots of coming to terms with grief and stuff like throughout that fun. And then like similarly in Looper, there's this man trying to protect the woman that he loves. He's having to do like horrible, unimaginable things. You've got
right,
even Kid Blue, we were saying he's comedic. He's also tragic. All he wants is for
yeah,
Abe to he just wants Abe to say that he did good. What Abe has done is he's picked up so kind of like all of these sort of like street urchin kids. He's kind of like
yeah,
um
the Artful
oh,
Dodger.
that's the one. He's kind of collected up all of these kids because he says to Joe, when I saw you, you had the hair covering one hidey face, and I put a gun in your hand and gave you a job to do. But some of these kids, like Kid Blue, have grown up seeing Abe as a father figure, and he's just,
Right.
he's that son that can never get his father's, he can never his father's adoration. Joe's clearly a favorite, and there's that sort of like almost brotherly jealousy between them. And then you have the whole mother son emotion between Sarah and Sid, where she is his mother, but she was like young and partying when she was pregnant, so she gave him to her sister. Her sister then died and she came back to look after him, but he doesn't remember her being his mum. And
Right.
so there's this like big emotion. And then towards the end, he kind of accepts her as his mother. And I mean, that scene has always got me, but having now
Mhm.
become a mother, it just hits me even harder. So it's a fun sort of time travel film, but it does also have, these really deep emotional beats. And I think that's something like with the Terminator films they had, and that's what makes them sustain, and that's what makes them more enjoyable than perhaps some other time travel films that you kind of watch, go, oh yeah, that was fun, and then you
Right.
forget about. These are films that sort of linger with you.
Right. And I think that's ultimately where, not to get too far off topic, but that's where the Terminator films that have come afterward have largely disconnected with audiences because there
Yeah.
wasn't the emotional beats. There wasn't everybody's going for, okay, it's just killer robots from the future. And no, that's not the whole thing. There's more to it than that. And without that, connection to it, it loses a lot. And so I think that's ultimately where they need to get back to. And it's I don't know if they'll ever do it. Unfortunately, I'd love for them to do it. I'd love for them to, move somewhere with that franchise that they could um continue on in a good way, but we'll see. So,
There's an anime, The Terminator, coming to Netflix at some point this year.
oh, interesting.
I've seen it advertised in like the coming soon section from Japan. So
Hmm.
I'm interested in seeing what that does. It's a different medium, different country behind
Yeah.
it. I'm quite
Yeah.
intrigued to see what somebody else does with it.
Yeah, that's good to know. I'll have to keep my eye out for that. Yeah, no. Yeah, this yeah, that mother and son dynamic between Sarah and Sid is very, yeah, like you said, it's been fractured, but over the course of the movie, there's that it comes back around and there's some closure with it. And it's interesting too because we get towards the end of the movie and they're um we're at the very end and old Joe is trying to kill Sid and the mom is standing in the way and you get this moment where young Joe sees the future like suddenly clear and he sees that if she dies then that's when Sid becomes evil and becomes the rainmaker and losing his mother is what sets him down that path and so that Joe ends up becoming the the maker of his own future if he does this and if he had just let it go then that wouldn't have happened and so it's just it all goes back to that self-fulfilling prophecy style of tale and I
Yeah.
like that and Joe a young Joe makes the decision he's like look I if this happens you know everything goes to hell this kid lives a life without his mother and you know, lives a life of pain for the rest of his life. And, I'm not going to do that. And this is what you were saying earlier, but, he makes this choice to, kill himself. Young Joe does. And in that instant, old Joe just vanishes because he's no longer there. So, um, and it's really funny too, because it's like, again, this leads to the paradox of, well, if old Joe wasn't alive, then how did all of the rest of this happen? It's like, does any of this reset? No, it just continues from there, which, you just got to let it go, So I, uh, I just think that's a funny one to like, that like those paradoxes always trip people up. And it's like, just be entertained, people. Just enjoy it. Don't think too hard about the mechanics of time travel. It's really not worth it. Just enjoy what they're showing us and have fun with it.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's really strong in Looper, and it's what I like about any sort of film that's set in the future, particularly if it's a near future, is that it feels like a tangible future.
Mm,
The tech
yeah,
in it there's like hover bikes, but they don't
yeah,
work too good. When old Joe goes to the library, it's kind of like a touch screen, sort of like interface,
right,
which feels it feels like that's kind of where we could go. No one is dressed super futuristically. They're
right,
dressing for the past because that's what we do. Look at the moment, it's like the early noughties fashions coming in. We've had the 80s has been back, the 90s has been back. At no point are we like, oh, look, we're in the year 2024. Let's like look to the future and start dressing like that.
right,
So I like a grounded tech future
right.
in my sci-fi films, and this gives that in spades. And then it also has that other little element of the TK mutation where
Yes,
10% of the population now possess a varying ability of telekinesis, which leads into Sid's power and Sid becoming the Rainmaker because he's like super powerful. But it's introduced ever so subtly with like Paul Dano's character like hovering a quarter.
Right.
And then like later on we see Sarah doing the same thing with a lighter. And it's nice because it's like, oh, it is the future. Things are different, but they're not too out there that is completely unrelatable.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the kind of sci-fi I tend to like too, is something just slightly off from ours. If you're going to be in the future, just slightly ahead, or just not nothing too crazy. When you start getting, Star Wars aside, because I love Star Wars, but outside of that, I tend to gravitate more towards um science fiction that's only slightly off of ours or off of our current time, um or off our current ability. And like you said, this one's interesting because it's got that everybody's got cars that have been like obviously retrofitted to run on solar power, and not just not like newfangled cars or anything, but they've like bolted on solar panels to all the cars, and they've got tubes running through the from the gas tanks and everything to kind of like you know show that they've had to do this with the cars rather than make new cars. They just do that. And there are new cars, there's a few here and there, but most of them you see are just people who've done this to their cars rather than uh get a brand new one. And I love that concept of just slightly ahead. And you were right about the fashions and stuff like that, because it's a it's a moment in there where Joe's wearing a tie and Abe asks him like, why are you wearing that? Like, that's old. Like, why are you wearing old stuff? And he's just like, that's what I like. And that's you're absolutely right. We're always dressing backwards, not forwards. So I love that. Yeah, it's good observation. But yeah, no, I did. And even when they're in the future, 30 years later, 2074, things are looking a little bit better. But even still, for 30 years later, they're still basically the same. Nothing's gotten super out of touch in terms of tech or anything. Even the time machine that they send people back into is just this big metal sphere, um, with all kinds of stuff all over it. So it's not like even the tech of the future, in the far future, 30 years from now, is that much crazier. And so, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I don't know if I have anything else left to say about this one. It's just a really, really fun, good movie. Lots of great performances. And like I said, time travel I'm a sucker for. And you know give it to me. And I hope it works out well. Some are better than others, and this one's one of the best, I think.
Yeah. Piers, talking about performances, Piers Gagnon was 5 when he made this. I think
Uh,
Sid is supposed to be about 7,
right.
but Piers was 5. Like I have a
Wow.
5-year-old upstairs as we record this, and
Right.
he would not have the patience to like deliver those lines and that performance that he does. I mean, okay, a lot of it is kind of like on the border of being frustrated, which a
Yeah.
5-year-old can do. But it's still like it's a lot, it's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff to take.
And held his own with both Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Emily Blunt as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, and so it's like obviously there's old Joe bringing and the time travel bringing in the Terminator aspect, but
Yeah.
then it's through Sid that you get the Terminator 2 elements. So you've got this kind of like back and forth between mother and son that you have with Sarah and John, but there's also the scene where Garrett Dillahunt is in the house and Sid sneaks Joe down like the railroad track that they've got like under their house, and they're kind of watching from the bunker from a distance, and they're having this like heart to heart, which is
Yeah.
not too dissimilar from the weapons cache discussion between the T-800 and John Connor. So it was kind of like fusing both of them together for me, which I think is what sort of
Right.
made it really stand out the first time that I watched it.
I'm curious as to whether anybody's asked, or maybe he's mentioned it or anything, if Ryan Johnson has remarked about the Terminator films being a clear influence for these? Because it seems like it's very obviously a clear influence for these or for this movie.
think he has. So when I saw this film like 6 times when it came out of the cinema, um,
I saw your post about that. Yeah.
and yeah, and one of the times. So I don't know if he does it anymore. I guess like his more recent films have gone to Netflix, but something that Ryan Johnson used to do is for when the films hit theaters, he would record a special commentary,
Yes.
which you could download. Um, I mean, God, 2012, I think I downloaded it onto my iPod. I think so. We're kind of
Probably.
we're talking we're talking old tech here. But one of the times I went to see it, I went and I put my headphones on and I sat far. It was like a matinee screening. There wasn't many other people in, but I sat far away from them, and I sat with the headphones on and sort of listened to Ryan Johnson like talk me through the film, which was really really cool. And I think in that he does obviously mention that like Sarah Connor was kind of a big inspiration for Emily Blunt's character because she
Mm,
is that sort of tough single woman, anything, just she's like a anything to protect her child.
right.
So yeah, I think it's I mean he can't not be aware of it, let's face it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think so for sure. Um, let's see. I'd just seen because the disc does have a commentary track on it. But yeah, yeah, it looks like Ryan Johnson, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Emily Blunt are all on the commentary track on the disc. So I'll have to check that out. I put that on my wish list. I have it on digital. I just didn't have it on disc. So I have to buy that and check it out for sure. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but like I said, I my sort of last thing to say about
yeah.
Looper is that without Looper, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation because it was Looper that inspired me to start writing about film.
Oh wow.
Um, I did a film production. I did a media production degree at college. And then left and went into retail because the movie industry is ridiculously hard to get into no matter the country. But in the UK, unless your parents are billionaires or, you're connected in some way, it's impossible. So I was working retail for a few years and then I went to watch Looper and wanted to write just for myself something about how it connected in with the Terminator franchise. Kid Blue, something I've not mentioned, Kid Blue dresses very similarly to Kyle Reese. He's got the trench coat and then his
Mm,
hand gets injured and his hand gets wrapped in a bandage like Kyle's does at one point. Um, and so it sort of inspired me to sort of start tinkering around with writing something. And then I saw the post for the Hollywood News where they were looking for volunteers to write. And I was like, okay, why not? And then obviously from there it's escalated. So yeah, without Looper, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
oh,
And yeah, it's a lot. I mean, my husband gave me a pocket watch on my wedding day because of how obsessed I was with Looper. Um,
I saw the
I
bit
was
about your daughter's name.
Yeah, I mean, that is talk about like Christopher Nolan's Inception. That I was like,
Yeah.
watching it back before this recording, and the club where Susie works and where the Loopers hang out is called La Bella Raw, and I was like, oh my god, because people have gone like, why? How did you come up with the name of Raw? And I was like, I just kind of liked it, and my husband's into space and stuff, so it felt right. It wasn't because of Sleeping Beauty. I'm not a big Disney person, so it wasn't
Right.
because of that. And I always like just the name I liked. And then when we were watching it back the other night, it's like, or did I? Like, have I been
It
incepted?
was Looper all along.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've been fortunate to meet Ryan Johnson and, thank him for the film. But yeah, it was Looper has a massive piece of my heart.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, I love when something has inspired you so much that it led to something like that. So that's awesome. It just
I
goes to
still,
the
yeah,
oh,
you
go
say
ahead.
I still haven't written that essay because I think it's one of those things where like the film is so important to me that
Right.
I don't want to mess it up by putting something not right out there. But one day, I'm also ridiculously busy,
Yeah,
but one day I'll sort of like dig deep and put that out. So if anybody's listening that wants to commission me to write it, then I can
there
do
you
it for
go.
money.
There you go. Yeah, no, I think that would very much be a really big passion project for you as well, too. Just how much Looper means to you and how it connects to the Terminator franchise, which means a lot to you. So that would be really cool. I'll be there to read it for sure. So um yeah, okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on and talk about Come True, which is a Canadian independent film. Um uh this movie so part of this is I'm very interested in talking about the end, but I don't want to get there quite yet. But basically, this movie revolves around a girl named Sarah Dunn, who is she's she's obviously having problems with her mom. So instead of staying at home, she goes and sleeps either at a friend's house or outside, until she finds out about a sleep study. And so she goes to go do this sleep study because it gives her like, what is it gonna? It's gonna be a a month or two of being able to just sleep inside somewhere every night, and they just hook her up to these monitors and everything, and they're doing something. They're some kind of thing that they won't tell her about, and you find out that you know they're being able to see into everybody's dreams, and they're trying to find this connection between them all. Um, and this it's a slow burn. Um, so just know going into it, it's kind of a slow burn. But not like in a bad way where there's not stuff happening. It's a slow burn where like little things happen that kind of keep propelling it forward, which is nice. Um, the soundtrack is like fabulous. Um, and just the visuals are interesting. Every time they go into a dream, there's all this I'm assuming it was made digitally, but there's all this dream like visuals going on, and it's creepy and weird and kind of just ethereal. It's kind of hard to explain it all, but it's just really good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I I first saw this when it screened at Fantasia. I was covering the
Yes.
festival. I was covering the festival remotely, and I tend to watch a lot of them on my own, but if it's got like a sci-fi angle to it, then it's easier to get past my husband. So we actually watched this on our anniversary because it was COVID.
Mm,
So Fantasia was like a month later. So we watched it on our anniversary, and I just adored everything about it. So it's truly Anthony Scott Burns' vision. I mean, he wrote it, he directed it, he edited it, he was the
does
DOP.
yeah.
Yeah, he does the soundtrack
He does the
under
soundtrack, yeah.
his
Pilot
alias of
Priest.
Pilot Priest.
Yep.
So this is his vision, and that's something that I like. As much as I know it's a necessity for indie filmmakers these days that they've got to do everything, they can't have a writer and a director and an editor. Everyone's got to kind of like
Do
muck down.
everything.
But yeah, but what I do like from that constraint is that we get something like this, which is so clearly one person's vision.
Right.
It's so singular that you know that this is it's like him served up into the film in a way.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And the central performance by Julia Sarah Stone is just fantastic. Um, it's it's hypnotic. It's like
Mm.
everything about the movie is just it's this entire mood piece. It's so interesting. It's hard to explain. Like you really need to see this movie. It's just like when I say the soundtrack was really good. I have listened to it so much since after the movie. It's ridiculous. It's pretty much on a loop. Every few days I'm like listening to it again. It's just that
Yeah,
good.
it's one of those things where like the whole score is good. It's not like there's like one or
Yeah.
two songs. It's like
Yes.
you listen to the score and you know exactly where you are in the film when you listen to it. And yet there's a couple of songs where Pilot Priest collaborates with Electric Youth, who did the
Yes.
soundtrack for Drive. So if you've seen Drive and haven't seen Come True, you kind of get an idea of where you're going with the sort of music there is.
Yeah.
Um, the song Modern Fears, which is a big feature in the film, has been in my like top five Spotify like since I first saw Come True. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I think I am that like top 0.1% fan for Pilot Priest and Electric Youth through that song. But yeah, I mean Julia Sarah Stone, I think I first saw her in a film called The Unseen,
Okay.
um, which again screened at Fantasia, and it's kind of like a modern day reimagining in a way of the Invisible Man story.
Mm.
Uh, but instead of it's like this man has this disease where he's becoming invisible, but he's going invisible sort of like layer by layer. So like he loses his skin and then you can't see his bone and then his organs. And so he's kind of covering himself up as much as he can. And he's had to leave the family home. And Julia plays his daughter, who's like desperately
Mm.
trying to sort of like find her father and reconnect. And she doesn't understand why he wants nothing to do with her. So I was really impressed with her there. And her plus the sci-fi was something that made me put Come True on my watch list for that festival. And yeah, her
Right.
performance is incredible. She's almost like a female Donnie Darko in a way. There's lots of similarities
Mm.
between them. You know, like she rides a bike, and you know she does have that kind of hypnotic vibe to her that Donnie has. You know, things are sort of
Yeah.
happening around him, and he's just kind of reacting. It's a very similar for Sarah as well.
Yeah. 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 It's, it's just, I, I don't know. It's hard to really explain the movie. I mean, the movie itself is fairly easy to explain. I mean, she goes to this sleep study, and um, everybody is dreaming of this dark entity with these white glowing eyes, and then you find out later on that this entity has existed in many people's dreams for centuries, and nobody can explain it. They just kind of dismiss it. Oh, it's just dreams. So they're just trying. That's what the researchers are trying to do, is just trying to that one's not more fully explained. I guess they're just trying to, I guess, see if everybody is still dreaming of about this, and just seeing how much, because I think part of it also is that people, like they say, drop in and out of the studies a lot. So they don't always have people who um stick around. Um, and then one of the like the main tech guy, who kind of is the um I guess he's been dreaming about this since he was 6 years old, and he kind of follows Sarah, and I don't know, I'm assuming he feels some kind of connection with her. It's not really fully explained, but so it almost has some fallout. She almost leaves the study, but to keep her there, he has to tell her everything that's going on, and that's when you get all the backstory about all of this and what's going on, and how, and then everything just escalates from there. And it's just, it gets more and more nightmarish as it goes along.
Yeah, it has that sort of like Freddy Krueger quality of
Yeah.
once she knows about it, once she knows that we're looking for this thing, you know, we picked it up on recordings of dreams. This is the thing that then suddenly that intensifies, and it's that whole like Freddy Krueger scenario where as soon as Freddy's given a name and a story,
Yeah.
suddenly Freddy's got more power and more
Right.
potency in the real world.
Right. Right. Yeah, because it gets to a point where she's in the hospital, because she's having these panic attacks, because she's presented with an image from her dream and sees him, sees this creature and has a panic attack. Then later on, she has another, like, I guess a panic attack. It's, she just collapses inside of a club's bathroom. And um, the guy, Riff, who takes her to the um, hospital, he's sitting there with her, but she, like, leaves. I think he falls asleep and then she leaves. And then he discovers her sleepwalking. Um, so he's trying to keep her from, getting hurt or anything, calls one of the other researchers to bring their equipment that can see the dreams. And so as they're walking, they're seeing her passing by, like, a bunch of these creatures. It's not just one now, it's multiple of these creatures that are inside her dream. And then towards the end of it, like, they're trying to get back, and stuff starts happening in the real world around them, and both Riff and the other girl, Anita, they get taken. And then and this is where I have questions. I want to kind of talk about this. Then we um Sarah's character, Sarah, she um wakes up and she's on top of Riff, and she's like got her thumbs in his eye sockets, and she's covered in blood. And when she goes to the bathroom to look at herself in the mirror, she sees fangs, like vampire fangs. And which kind of calls back to an earlier thing, because she was seeing Riff's dream while he was asleep, um that they were together in the dream, and they both were vampires. And so my thing about this was, it was interesting because I thought for a second, I was just like, okay, is this actually a stealth vampire movie? Are these creatures vampires? And I don't think it's supposed to be that at all, but I was just like, that's actually really cool if that's what it was. Um, so what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's obvious the whole film has this sort of like timeless dream quality to it, and it's sort of the narrative is cohesive, but then it's off at certain points. Characters suddenly
Right.
appear and disappear. Like her
Yeah.
friend Zoe is there and then isn't, and then there's a scene in a laundromat which Sarah's there, then she's asleep, then she's gone, and then
Yeah.
it's like it's kind of hard to keep track of time. And then yeah, she's watching the dreams,
What's
and then
real
there's
and not
this,
real.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and that obviously then plays into the reveal at the end, which I know irritates a lot of people. Um, I
It's
know
a,
my
it's
husband's one of
it's
them. He's
definitely
like,
a
it's a
weird
really good
reveal.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, it's a really good film until like the last 30 seconds. But and I can't articulate why, but it just clicked for me. Like I don't know, I can't articulate why I get it, but I think
Right.
I get it. I think I get what Anthony's doing. Um,
Well,
and I'm hoping like the more I watch it, the more I'll eventually
right.
understand it and be able to articulate it. But at this point in time, I'm like, yes, I know what you mean. On a subconscious level, I am there, but it's not quite worked its way to the surface yet.
Yeah, because I mean, while she's looking at herself in the mirror, she gets a text message on her phone, but it's an image. It was weird too, because it said it was downloading image, not like an actual text message. And in the image, it says basically, "You've been in a coma for 20 years. We're trying to get a hold of you, and we're hoping this finds you somewhere in your dream. Please wake up." And so I guess we're led to believe that all of this has been a dream. Like, every bit of this is her in the dream. And it kind of makes sense in a way because of, like you said, the disconnectedness at times. There's things that happen. Like you said, her friend Zoe just disappears. Like, there's nothing, like, you know, things happen that don't make any sense. And um very kind of dream logicy. And it's so the ending is fine to me. um I don't have a problem with it. I would like to know, it's one of those things where I kind of want to know the filmmaker's intent.
Yeah.
Just to know, and because that won't spoil anything for me enjoying the movie on the level that I enjoy it on. But it's always one of those things definitely where I'm like, okay, but what did you mean exactly? Why does she have fangs at the end? I'm assuming it's just, hey, it's just part of the dream. It's just another aspect of this dream. And since she saw Riff's dream, that's why all of a sudden she's dreaming she's a vampire. But I did think it was an
Yeah,
interesting concept that maybe these creatures that were in the dreams, they were vampires, and maybe there was some kind of vampire thing going on. But because they didn't really explore that at all up to that point, I knew that wasn't the case. But it was just still like one of those things where it's like that would have been really, really cool, actually, like some kind of new vampire mythology that they're trying to build on here.
yeah. I mean, there is that split second where you see the fangs. I think I had a similar thing my first time, and then I think people have the problem with that it was all a dream. They see that as like a cop out ending, and I think in some instances it is, but in
Sure.
something like this, where then the penny drops of like, oh no, this has all been a dream. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so maybe it in a weird way the film makes sense now. The fact that bits of it
Yeah.
didn't make sense makes sense because it's a dream and it's evolving. Like you say, she's now got the fangs because in Riff's dream she had fangs. So yeah, now she's internalized that
Right.
and she's like lucid dreamed in some aspect. And I kind of feel like it's kind of like going back to sort of Inception with like the different layers of the dream. And it's kind of like in this one, she is more aware. So maybe she's closer to waking up. Because obviously, like there's the whole thing when they're starting the study where they talk through the different stages of sleep and
Yeah.
how like if you wake up at this point, you won't know where you are. And if you wake up at this point, blah blah blah. And I kind of feel like the reason why she kind of starts like hysterically laughing after sort of seeing this message is she's maybe finally pushed through the surface enough that she is aware now that she's
Yeah.
dreaming and that maybe she won't be too long until she's out.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. No, yeah, I fully agree with you on that, and that I think that yeah, this movie loses nothing, for me, for being like for the reveal that it's all been a dream. Like I have no problem with that because of like you said, the internal logic of the movie and the things that don't make sense throughout it and everything then make sense. And so yeah, everything about it is just and it just works for me. Like I get that it's not going to work for other people. And sometimes movies like this don't work for me. There's lots of movies that I watch that are like more mood pieces um and don't really have anything going on with them, and then I'm just like no, this movie's not for me. But this one just works so well for me, and I think it comes down to performance, the performances in it, the especially by Julius Hairstone, and the music, and the direction, just everything about it just somehow just works so well for me that I'm just like I'm all in on this. I would love to see more. So
Um, Again, like the tech works.
yeah.
It like everything else, it's timeless. So you've got cell phones and laptops mixed in with computers from the 80s and teeny tiny monitor screens. That's how they're recording the dreams is like on some big ass 80s monitor. Um,
Yeah.
and it all kind of blends together to create this really out of time thing, which is something again that I enjoy. It's like It Follows does a similar thing. Like you can't quite
Right.
pin down if It Follows is happening in the real world or not because the tech, there's like cars from the 50s and then there's like the clamshell,
The
like
clamshell e-reader. Yeah.
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 And so I like it when a film kind of does that because it maintains its longevity because it's not saying I am in this time.
Yeah.
There's so many films. I mean, Buddies is a great film, but a lot of the things they mention, like TikTok or whatever, they're not going to be a thing in 20 years' time.
Right.
But you can go back to Come True and be like, oh my God, that's what a computer was like back then. What? It does have this quality. And I think the other thing that really stuck with me is that it's sci-fi, but it was also very much a horror to me.
Yes.
Those dream sequences, I remember saying to my husband when we were watching, like, I don't like this. Like, I've always been fascinated by dreams
Yeah.
and sleep. I'm not somebody that sleeps well. I can lucid dream,
Mm,
which is cool, but then I can also have some pretty bad. Um, I've had like sleep paralysis at stages
mm,
before in my
yeah.
life, so this film tapped into that because there are elements of sleep paralysis in it, but just the capturing of the dreams, I think, unlocked something in me that I was like, I think I've had this dream. And that's obviously what the film is saying. It's like this
Yeah.
is a common thing across the ages. And I was sat there thinking, yeah, like because it's, that I've spoken to Anthony and he was saying that he wanted the camera to be forever pushing forwards because like when you dream, you don't really have any control over where you're going. You're just
Right.
being taken. So that's why the camera's sort of ever pushing forwards. And then the shadowy the shadowy silhouettes are almost like Barker-esque in a way, which is something else that I really like. I feel that you can see the producer Vincenzo Natali, who did Splice and Cube. I kind of feel like you can feel his influence in the dream sequences, especially.
Mm,
And yeah, it just led to me being very, very unnerved. And even now, when I've seen the film countless times, I still get a little bit nervy during those things because it was like he recorded my dreams and then put them
right.
on the screen. I was like, I don't like this. I was like, I don't know where this film's going, but I don't like it because if something comes out, like I'm never sleeping again.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't remember my dreams, but the bits that I do remember here and there don't feel like that. You know what I mean? Like so, for me watching the dream sequence was interesting, but didn't feel like that. And so I was like, okay, well, thank God mine don't feel like that. Like,
Yeah.
because I would hate that. Um, just be pulled through these nightmarish landscapes. Just yeah, it's it's fun to look at, but definitely I wouldn't want it where it was uncontrolled in my brain. Um, but yeah, no, it's what was the other thing I was gonna say? Oh, I wanted to find out, what is it about this movie that felt like Terminator to you?
So there's a few. I think one, as much as it's timeless, it's got a very 80s aesthetic to it.
Yeah,
It borrows like it feels sort of tech noir like Terminator. It's um I don't, there's just something about its feel.
mm,
And talking to Anthony, he openly admits that of course you're supposed to know it's the Terminator because like that's one of the films I had in like my head for tone. So I was like, okay, it's fine. Um Anita has a Terminator poster in like the office on the wall when
that's
she gets the
right.
kit. So there's a direct reference there. Just like the lighting,
Yeah, I love
the
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 lighting in this movie. Just
the
it's all
blues and reds
blues
and
and purples and
purples and
everything.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, you've got as with Looper, you've got a main female protagonist who's called Sarah. Um,
yeah,
she gets stalked by a man who is revealed to be harmless, but she gets stalked
yeah,
by a man across town wearing a trench coat and looking shifty. So you've kind of got your Kyle Reese character in a weird way. But yeah, I guess it was kind of just it's just the vibes and the sort of
yeah.
like electronic heavy score is quite reminiscent of Brad Fiedel's. So yeah, it was again like with the ending, it was just something sort of on a subconscious level that was like I recognized like
Right,
this has the DNA. I could think I could tell that it was made by somebody who loved the film as much as I did. And so just some way I sort of picked up on it. Some like I don't know, like dogs can hear things that other people can't. I think like as a
right.
Terminator fan, I was just like, oh yes, I love this. I'm not, it just yeah. I
Maybe
feel like
that's
the night,
yeah, yeah. Maybe that's why
there's
it
a lot of
speaks to me as well. So,
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of night. They're
oh yeah,
walking along the highway at night rather than driving along the highway at night. But yeah, there's something. I mean, James Cameron's Canadian, right? It's a Canadian independent filmmaker. It's yeah, it all. I don't know. It's I can get my tin hat on and probably find you like a thousand a thousand random connections. But yeah, there was just something to me that was like, this kind of feels like the vibes of what a modern Terminator might be if it wasn't just a direct rehash, if it wanted
Yeah.
to go into a completely different thing. If you want a film with the same vibe as something like Terminator, if you distill it down to its essence, I think that, that Come True has a good shot at that.
Yeah. No, and I think that's honestly, I think that may be where we need to go with this. Like I was saying before, like I'd love to see somebody make a Terminator movie that, takes the feel more than the concepts and takes that feel into it. And that may be where we're at with both Come True and with Looper. Looper is a little bit more directly um, you know, um inspired by the Terminator movies, but whereas Come True is just like the vibe. And so I think that that's a kind of a good place to go with that, where maybe do somewhere in between, like somewhere where you get the vibes and you get the time travel and everything like that without being too slavish to exactly the Terminator story. And I think that would work well. So, but yeah, no, I think that may be why I dig this movie so much, because I am also big Terminator fan. Um, fan of the whole universe. But it's and always hopeful that they can succeed and make something new that will work well in that franchise. I had hopes for Dark Fate doing well, but I think Dark Fate was better than um you know definitely better than Genesis. But still not quite there. So uh,
Yeah. Three for me is terrible. Salvation,
three
I think
three
that
is the
Anton,
worst. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Salvation, I thought Anton Yelchin was a great younger version of Kyle Reese.
I
I think
like
he did enough of,
I like Salvation overall because it's interesting to get a focus in the future. Like get a story from that point of view. It doesn't necessarily, and that's what I like about it, is they weren't trying to go back and go, okay, let's do the same story over and over again. And that's what they keep doing with Genesis and Dark Fate. They keep trying to retell the same story in just different ways. I'm like, stop doing that. Do something different in that world. And that's what I think Salvation
yeah,
does well. So I would
yeah.
have
And
liked to have
Yelchin did
seen.
such a good, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree.
yeah.
Sorry, I keep interrupting
Yeah,
you.
I was gonna say, yeah, Yelchin does a really good job at, being Michael Bean. Like,
Yeah.
as young, he has his mannerisms and stuff. Genesis to me just feels like cosplay fan
Yeah,
fiction.
I was gonna say it's like fan fiction. Yeah, it's not good.
Like,
So
I mean, I owe Jai Courtney an apology because when he was announced as playing Kyle Reese, I was like, dude's like, Kyle Reese literally says he's grew up starving and like hiding
yeah.
from HKs. How is he going to look like Jai Courtney, who's just like
Right.
clearly eating like 20 chickens for breakfast? Like, this doesn't work for me. But I actually didn't mind his performance. Um, and Dark Fate is fine as a time travel action film, but not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily work for me as a Terminator film. But that's
Hmm.
because I didn't enjoy what they did to Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
Right from the get go, they've taken away the thing that made her different to all the other action heroes, and that was they took away her motherhood,
Yeah.
which upset me. I think probably one of the more reasonable interpretations that we've had of the Terminator franchise is the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which
Oh
was
yeah.
can it was cancelled just as it was about to get good. They just jumped forwards to 2029 into the future, and then the show ended and got cancelled. But that
Yeah.
did like a nice job of sort of continuing on from Terminator. From Terminator 2, obviously had Lena Headey, Thomas Dekker, Garrett Dillahunt, who obviously then went on to star in Looper.
Yeah.
Um, I just feel like my webs. I'm gonna like get my notice board out later and
Yeah.
start,
Summer
like
Glau.
pinning
Yeah.
everything. Like there's gonna be
Yeah.
like James Cameron's Terminator, and then there's just going to be like lots of threads going to different things. And like, oh, Garrett
Right.
Dillahunt, he's in Looper, but he's also in the Terminator, Sarah Connor Chronicles. But yeah, it's
No,
yeah,
that was a fantastic show. I have that on Blu-ray as well. Because I was just like, no, I'm like I enjoyed it. I think I fell off somewhere in the second season just because of the way TV was at the time.
yeah.
And it was hard to always keep up. But I've since gotten both seasons on Blu-ray, and yeah, it's a fantastic show. So it's a definitely if you're a fan of Terminator, um, the at least the first two Terminators, go watch Sarah Connor Chronicles. It's pretty much in keeping with that same feel in a lot of ways. It definitely takes some liberties here and there, but definitely it's forging its own path in that universe. But yeah.
Definitely.
Is there anything else that we didn't mention about Come True that you want to talk about?
I don't no, I don't I think we've covered most of it. Obviously, it's still a reasonably new film.
Yeah,
It
20
yeah, so
2020.
it it got its festival run during COVID, so it was all remote and there weren't many people that, were necessarily watching it. And then when it released, it was still theaters were locked down and stuff. So it kind of just appeared on digital and then
Right.
on physical media kind of quietly. But I would say that if you haven't watched it, then do seek it out. Um, because it's a really interesting film, and I think that Anthony Scott Burns has the potential to be something really special. I mean, this is kind
Mm-hmm.
of like his first big thing. He's done a couple of features, and he did a segment in the horror anthology Holidays previously, but like Come True, you can tell is him through and through. And like if that's the sort of film that he wants to continue to make, like I know a lot of people that saw it afterwards were like, give him a Nightmare on Elm Street film, let him
Right.
loose with something like that. I'm quite here to see, where his career goes from this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. Yeah, it's just it's an interesting, fun movie. And definitely worth seeking out. It's on Shutter now. It was on Shutter in January, so I think I wouldn't say it's permanently on Shutter, but it's definitely been on there for a while. So anybody, at least in the US, so anybody
Yeah.
looking for that, definitely go check it out. There it is on Blu-ray also, in a couple of different ways. There's a regular Blu-ray that you can get easily from Amazon, but there's an even better version on Raven Banner store, which is the Canadian production company that helped put it out. Um, they're also the ones who did like the Psycho Gorman and stuff, and they've done a bunch of other stuff. That disc actually seems better. I'm going to try and grab that one myself because it's got doesn't have commentary, but it's got like a making of and stuff. Whereas the other one, the one you get on Amazon is only an audio descriptive track and a trailer. So the one on Raven Banner's shop, which at least for the US, is compatible because it's all region one. So you don't
Yes.
need.
And I mean, I will flog the UK. The UK,
Yes.
it's on Prime. So it's available through Prime for free.
Cool.
And there's a Blu-ray from Lightbulb Film Distribution, which may or may not have, yeah, I mean, it does. It has my name, my quotes, and my 5 stars on the front cover.
Awesome.
And that also that the extras on that are the making of featurettes. So it's got something to it.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's definitely worth seeking out uh wherever you're at. And if you enjoy it, definitely go go buy it. That's what I'm going to be doing for sure. uh once I can. But yeah, no, it's I'm glad I finally got a chance to talk to somebody about it because it's been something I wanted to like really kind of explore. And I love that you bring a perspective on it from your love of the Terminator franchise that I would not have thought of, even though I also love the Terminator franchise. So it's great. I love that both of these, and that I was curious. Like I said, I was curious when you told me about them. I was like, what's the connection? Like, how are these two connected in any way? And I love that you brought the connection and that more of the, and I can see it, but I love that because of your love of the Terminator franchise, that's how you saw it. I wouldn't have ever seen it that way otherwise. So that's awesome. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
um That being said, I think I don't have anything else to say about either one of these movies. So if you don't have anything else, you can go ahead and let people know where they can find you online.
So I am at Gizmo Shikari on Instagram, Twitter X, and Letterboxd. There's links to my work. To coincide with this, I will also share links to my interviews with Anthony Scott Burns and also Julia and Landon, who plays Riff in Come True, because I became instantly obsessed with this film, and it was during the festival circuit, and I was like, let me talk to everybody, just give them me. So I will share those with people who have seen Come True and maybe want to hear a little bit more from those that created it. Um, and yeah, I'm just working, and the mini boss will skin me if I don't also mention that you can listen to Movies with Mummy on all of your podcast platforms. We were a bi-weekly micro podcast. We're now a weekly micro podcast because
Wow.
that's what she wants. um, so yeah, you can listen to chaos there, or you can read some hopefully more articulated thoughts via my writing.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, definitely go check out Movies with Mummy. It's a fun podcast, especially if you have kids. Uh, I think that's the best audience for it is anybody who has kids because you can completely relate to the chaos. So,
Yes, exactly.
all right. Well, thank you again for coming on. It's always fun having you, and I
No,
appreciate
always,
it.
I always enjoy coming on this podcast. So thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course. Thanks again to Kat for joining me. Next week, Katrina returns to the show to talk about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is a part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Please check out morbidlybeautiful.com/podcasts for more great shows. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, please share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Harper Smith. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm Geek Thulu on Twitter and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.